The Seminole Headlines 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. As always, we say thank you for joining. We're down a man today, obviously for good reason. Corey Clark enjoying wedding bliss, as you put it, Ira, and the call for questions. We got a lot of questions. We'll get to those in hour number 2, maybe even some sprinkled in here. But we decided to record. We wanted to have some content. Thanks in part to our great sponsors. I just saw Ben, yay, sausage, at Capital City Country Club on Saturday, buddy.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, he gave me a brand new hat. He was going golfing, and he gave me a new registered sausage cap.
Oh.
I've got it in the car. I should have worn it today, but yeah.
Dude, you may not have wanted to share that. I've got some other Warchant staff members who are jonesing for those registers hats, and I told them I can't promise them. Maybe I can get a discount or something, but here you are saying you've got your free hat. So now,
man,
we'll see what we get.
He came over to Tom and I while we were hanging out, just got done with a round of golf. And he's like, hey, Jeff, hold on, I got your hat. And he ran back to the car and grabbed the hat. I'm all set, bud.
The pressure is on, Ben. We need more hats. Well, hey, I'll even wear one on the show.
But you don't do that very often. Register sausage, delicious sausage. It can be found all over the world.
Pretty much all over the world.
It's amazing.
If you do any traveling across Europe and you just ask for your register sausage, I think those are pretty good at this point, right?
Yeah, I think they call them bangers over there, but yes, you can. That's what it is. Yeah.
But in person, we know for a fact the register's map is out. The coverage map is out, and man, it is covered from the end of the Panhandle over to Alabama into South Georgia, across to Jacksonville, up into the Carolinas, down towards Tampa. I mean, we're taking over. And you can also, if you're not in this part of the country, go to registermeats.com and or this part of the world, go to registermeats.com and have it delivered to your house. It comes in a cooler with ice. You know, it's iced down. It's perfectly fresh. It's like you got it from your grocery store. So check him out and support Ben. And hopefully Ben will come through with some hats.
Yeah, man.
Then I get that also, by the way, you can order at registermeats.com. You can order the hats. I think I want to say it's a limited quantity. I'm not sure exactly.
Oh, I didn't ask. I just was excited to get mine. I wasn't worried about everybody else. I'm such an ass.
That is clear. That is 100%. You have made that abundantly clear. Because you didn't ask. You didn't ask for 2 or 3, did you?
No, I didn't. I didn't.
Yeah.
I got mine.
You might see us, but
yeah. Well, but hey, listen. I don't know how many times you've said, "Oh, but Ben, thanks for the free sausage. I need some for Jeff." I don't know that that's happened either. He lives around the corner from me, Ben. Just go ahead and give me a little extra, and I'll get it to Jeff.
This is not an airing of grievances. And if we're going to make fun of anyone, we should be making fun of Corey. So
that's true. He's not here to defend himself. It makes it all the easier. Well, all right. So here's what we do. Today's show's recorded. If you didn't know, I'm required to say that. I always forget to do it. For those of you listening on 93.3, we did this in the morning, not long before the normal time we would have gone on. I can't imagine much is going to change this time of year. I do know this. I know right off the bat, Ira, this is the week, and I like getting up early, and you like getting up early. Others amongst the staff do not all like getting up early, but we will be there bright and early on Thursday, right? 6 a.m. for tour of duty viewing, I suppose. And I'm actually really excited about it because there are so many guys I want to see get a good first look at.
Yeah, it is. And as you said, not everybody's going to be real fired up on the staff to be there at 6 a.m. But I think everybody will be fired up once we get there because there are so many new faces. I mean, this is the most interesting spring that maybe any of us have covered. Really, because you think back to like Mike Norvell's first spring would have been really interesting, but it got cut short after 2 or 3 practices. Yeah. Willie Taggart, maybe the first spring, there was some excitement, but again, it's hard to look back at that time and see anything other than doom and gloom. You go back to Jimbo. Jimbo, when he took over in the spring, it wasn't new because he'd been in the program. Here, yeah. And so then once he got it rolling, there was a lot of excitement that spring when we didn't know who the quarterback was going to be, whether it's going to be Jameis or Clint Trickett or Jacob Coker. That was probably a really interesting spring, but we didn't get to watch it all. Now that's
the part about that is that we didn't get it. We had to be told at the end of every practice who did what. Yeah.
So that's so this is going to be, man, probably the most interesting spring that I can remember, and it starts from our standpoint really with this tour of duty because it will be our first chance. So we've gotten to meet all the newcomers. FSU's made them all available to the media. You can watch all those interviews on the channel, but this will be our first chance to see them sweating and running around and looking at like athletes.
I think is interesting in a weird way. You and I have talked about it off and on. Really, all Florida State fans have. But I think it's fascinating that it comes at a good time that they get the influx of a lot of experienced players from other programs. I think it comes at a good time, and it's because Florida State, while building towards an undefeated season a year ago, they did get snubbed, and there was bitter disappointment and a lot of frustration and a lot of anger and a lot of where do we go from here type conversation, Ira. But now when you have guys that have worked really hard at other programs, had success at other programs, they can bring those experiences in. It's kind of a fresh pair of eyes. It's also, in the case of like 5 Alabama players coming from a program of greatness. There's no other way to say it, right? So that's what we're hearing about every one of these guys, about all the people that they've brought in, is this work ethic and this intensity and this focus. And I don't know, I feel like it's kind of a shot in the arm in a weird way. I don't know that they needed it, but it can't hurt. I don't think it can hurt at all to have a new group in here, a large group of people that, hey, whether it's Oregon State or it's West Virginia or it's Colorado State or it's Alabama or LSU, they got a ton of guys from different programs.
And I think it's fair to say, right, that most of these guys, they wouldn't have been able to get 2 years ago.
Correct.
You know, you weren't rating Alabama's roster 2 years ago. You were getting guys from, I mean, all over. They did a good job. They
screwed South Carolina, Ira.
did. Yeah, exactly. You've gone from fishing in South Carolina's pool to Alabama's pool. Yeah. So that's a good thing. And you know, again, as you said, Jaylen Brown from LSU, and you know, obviously Marvin Jones Jr. from Georgia, and you know, across the board. And then the guys you got from the other programs, as you said, West Virginia or Oregon State or some of these other schools, you got guys who have done it. Like they performed at a high level when they got to play. So you know, again, this is probably the most proven. You're talking about overall group of transfers. I think this is probably the most proven group. I mean, you know, the offensive lineman from Florida that had, you know, he started all last season. Yeah. You know, you look at, you know, you've got guys who are coming in with, you know, the running back Roydell Williams from Alabama, the guys that have played and played at a high level. Now you're hoping they all find a higher gear, or you know, prove to be better than they were. I think the biggest wild card, and I just posted a story on the website people can read at warchant.com, our spring position preview on the wide receivers. Malik Benson, man, he could be the kind of the key to this whole thing, because you're going to need some of these new receivers to step up. You lost Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson, who were not just your top 2 receivers, they were like your 2 only consistent downfield threats during the season, and you lost both of them. And Malik Benson should fit into that. He's the guy that you think has the best chance of fitting into that mold. And if he does, if you have a true wide receiver 1 there, it just sets the table for everybody else to kind of fall into line. Nobody else has to feel the need to be that guy. But, you know, he had 13 catches last year at Alabama. He did start 6 games, but he only had 13 catches. So it's just a weird situation where you have some guys like that who have tremendous potential, really good pedigrees, but also don't have the proven production like a Keon Coleman did when he came in.
I place him in the same category as Hakeem Williams, because I think Hakeem Williams, who had some catches a year ago, but obviously would have had more had he not got hurt, but showed flashes, whether it was what we saw at practice. You know, once he made a decision to lose the weight and come in great shape and then dedicate himself to blocking, it's like it opened the door for all the other aspects of being a receiver. And they were starting to go to him because some of the injuries that were happening along the way. And then I think, you know, obviously he gets hurt, Destin gets hurt. But the reason I say I put him in the same category is he was a 5-star elite talent, you know, and anybody that gets recruited to, say, Alabama, as you just referenced, I mean, we know the receivers that they've churned to the pros. It's hard to get an offer to go to Alabama and play wide receiver. Right. And I think that, you know, when you start looking at the clay that you're molding there, the elite level athlete that we're talking about, it's reasonable to expect that they take a big leap forward, as opposed to some kid that you brought in that you thought had real potential, but maybe he was a 3-star talent. It might take him 2, 3, maybe even until he's a senior to see it all come out. I'm not saying we don't have moments like that or that guys don't suddenly transform and become something they weren't in high school. It's just easier when you're peppering the lineup with an infusion of talent at that level to expect, it's more reasonable anyhow, to expect that they will take the step forward, especially if you've seen glimpses. So we know what they are physically. Now you're talking about in-game experience being relied upon to be the guy. And I'm going to read your piece. I'm going to guess that you're noting that, I mean, they got a ton of names there, Ira, and they don't need all of them to be great. They just need a few.
Yeah, I would lean towards Benson being the most likely candidate, but it sounds like you think Hakeem might end up being the wide receiver one, or do you think it's a toss-up?
I would go with
those two?
toss-up. I just think I think that he has the same ability probably in terms of overall talent to get the most out of it. I just suspect that's a kid who's going to be a son of a bitch for opposing defenses to deal with. He struck me as somebody who kind of woke up in a hurry. My guy got here when the first time we ever saw him, and he was a cheeseburger away from being a tight end. And I looked at him and thought, ooh, I don't know. I mean, he looked out of shape. He looked tired often. He pulled himself out of drills. This is not a knock. This is a welcome to prime time. You know, you were a stud at a program where, listen, I mean, you were the best player on the field every week you played, and you didn't have to really worry about it. Now you get here and you look around, and everybody's as good or better than you.
And to clarify for people that I know most people know it, but you're talking about, so last spring when Hakeem came in as an early enrollee, that first spring. Now, by the time we saw him in preseason camp, it was a different story.
A totally different story. And that's why I'm applauding him, because he transformed in a very rapid period of time. And that tells me something about somebody, right? It tells me they're driven. It tells me that they can be honest with themselves. And not all these guys are. It's hard to be when you're the best athlete growing up in your respective town. When you're the best player in soccer and baseball, basketball, tennis, football, nobody's telling you a damn thing. But when you come to a place like Florida State, as they've continued to raise the level of talent, it's eye-opening. And some guys hit the ground running. Other guys never really get adjusted. And other guys kind of at least are brutally honest with themselves. They handle hard coaching right off the bat. They get told, look, this ain't going to get it done. And we see a response. We saw a response with him instantaneously. You're right. The difference between spring to fall camp, night and day. And I think that mentality isn't going to change. I have a feeling he's very frustrated that he didn't kind of meet the goals he had a year ago because of the injury.
Yeah, I think that group, and to me, it's like you've got like three factions of that receiver core. So you've got the older dudes, Kentron Portier, Ja'Kai Douglas, Darion Williamson, and you put Dewspan in there just from an age standpoint. And three of those guys, Ja'Kai, Darion, and Kentron have all had moments where you're thinking, okay, this guy could be a guy. And mostly it's been injuries for all three of them. None of those three really have been able to stay healthy through the course of a season. Portier, a year ago, we thought he was going to be their second or third top receiver. And he really wasn't available for almost most of the year. And then when he did play, he just wasn't a factor until the bowl game. So, maybe one of those guys stays healthy and becomes what they've showed glimpses to be over the course of a whole season. So maybe you get one out of those three.
Okay.
And then that next group is, the newcomers. I'd say Malik Benson. You've got the Jalen Brown from LSU. And then you've got those freshmen. You got four freshmen coming in. Three are here for the spring. One of them, Elijah Moore, the kid out of Maryland's coming in the fall or in the summer.
I'm pretty pumped about him too. I wish he was here in the spring.
Yeah, but the other three, you got three freshman receivers here this spring. So I don't know if you'll get, we'll see what you get out of that group. Obviously, Malik Benson is the one, seems most likely. He was the number one junior college player in the country, started half the season at Alabama last year, only had 13 catches, but you could excuse that to maybe not having a great passing quarterback.
Oh, what's that? They didn't have great quarterback play at Alabama?
Even though
really
somehow they got in the playoff, though.
Yeah, miracle,
and then you've got that group of the second-year guys, as you mentioned. You got Hakeem Williams, you got Vandrevius Jacobs, you've got Destin Hill, and so maybe you get one or two out of that group. So again, it's not like it's not like you've got to hit on all these guys, but you got to get one or two probably out of each of those groups, and then you've got a really good receiving core. And I think Benson, and to your point with Hakeem Williams, I think Benson and Williams to me the two, when you combination of physical ability, age, I think those are the factors that I would probably put them highest and, highest upside. But heck, you could get three, maybe you'll get 4 or 5 or 6 guys to come through. And even then you're still at half, 50%.
What you're talking about is competition. You're talking about fierce competition for guys that want to get on the field. And if they're dialed in and they're thinking about things correctly, they're going to have to compete at a real high level because of the talent that we're talking about that they're going up against. Listen, there's no reason to believe that Destin Hill can't take a step forward after he was banged up a year ago. And for a receiver, when you've got an ankle problem, you can't overcome that. It's not a shoulder. You got to be able to run, and he couldn't run. And so, the very thing that made him special is that blazing speed. His body type is awesome.
It is.
Right? I mean, I would not be surprised if Destin Hill was very good for them this year. But you're right. You don't know. You don't know because he didn't really get the chance to do it in the game. But, man, I like the way he played when he got opportunities, when he wasn't banged up. I thought he looked fairly polished. Last year, a couple of things there. They were banged up on the offensive line. They struggled to win first down. I thought Jordan was better on the deep ball the year before than he was last year. Mm-hmm. So there's just some factors there. It'll be fascinating, man. They got a big, big, big arm at quarterback right now, a guy who is, that's what he does. He can stretch the field. I think they're going to have some people emerge. I really am confident in that. And anybody that's listened to me project that they're going to be really good next year knows that I'm making some assumptions. I'm assuming that a group of about 4 receivers are going to emerge because I can't cite the statistics and say that it's going to happen.
Right. Yeah.
But I just think that will happen. I also happen to think that if you're ever going to get a great year, like a year where you look back statistically and say, oh, man, look what a jump that was from your quarterback, it's going to be this year. Like DJ gets to work with Mike, and I think very highly of Mike, the play caller, Mike, the OC, Mike, the quarterback. Tokars is a great quarterback coach too, I think, by the way. I really like what he did to help Jordan. I think he's a quarterback coach that the players really like an awful lot. I enjoy talking with him, learning from him. I don't know, man. I think that you're going to see that guy unlocked as well. DJ's biggest problem is he misses the intermediate throw, and he doesn't complete a high percentage of passes, both of which are something Mike's offense can fix.
Yeah, and this could be just, man, pie in the sky, over-the-top optimism, but part of me feels like last year having so many guys he felt the need to get the ball to.
Yeah.
You got Keon and Johnny, you brought in Jaheim Bell, you've got Trey Benson, you've got all these different weapons, Kyle Morlock, that it almost felt like at times that things were getting forced at times to certain guys or really trying to emphasize a certain player or matchup. And it felt like they weren't I felt like the first couple of years previous to that, when Mike Norvell was the play caller, I felt like they were more resourceful. Like they did a better job of maximizing all of their talent. You look at that offense last year, and they did not maximize all of their talent. And so I feel like maybe if you're Norvell, instead of trying to force the guys to certain guys, it kind of goes back to really using every ounce of potential you have available, and that might actually lead to more. Does that make sense? Like, it may actually lead to opening things up a little bit more than they were.
We're on the same page. We'll continue this conversation in the second segment. I'm telling you, I get excited talking about this. I'm not even kidding. I think the offense is going to be better. I've said it 3 times. This is the 4th. I'm going to continue to say it. I think it's going to be better than it was a year ago. And I don't want people to perceive that as a knock on any one player. It's not. I do think they had problems last year. I think there was inconsistency and injury. Those 2 things I think will be overcome this year. Now, you can't predict injuries, but they can't be as hurt as they were a year ago. They can't be. It seemed like every meaningful injury that this team had a year ago was on one side of the ball, just the offense, time and again. It was ridiculous.
And mostly at that position.
Oh,
offensive line too, but
yeah, the 2 positions it couldn't happen. Right. Yeah, it was absurd. Seminole Headlines, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV continues in a moment.
This is Jamie McClenny with Trek Financial in Tallahassee. Despite the highest global interest rates in almost 2 decades, inverted yield curves, conflicts in the Middle East, and 3 of the largest bank failures in U.S. history, equities and bond markets have posted stellar returns for 2023. The Dow Jones, the NASDAQ 100, and the Russell 2000 all reached new highs as markets rallied on the expectations of Fed pauses, Fed easing, and Fed bank bailouts. Markets are going to do what markets are going to do, but a clearly defined risk management protocol can help to mitigate large drawdowns in your retirement nest egg. If you're concerned where all this might be headed, call me at 850-900-5200 and let's talk about ways to mitigate the risk in your portfolio.
Make Jamie your first call for that second opinion. Investment advisory services offered through Trek Financial LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor.
If you've been waiting and waiting for the perfect time to buy your new house, you'll be waiting forever. This is Shannon Young with Fairway Independent Mortgage Corporation, and I have been a mortgage lender for over 20 years. And I can tell you that there is no such thing as perfect timing. So take the first step towards your new home and let me show you what that really looks like. Chances are very high that you'll be very surprised at what I can help you do. When rates go low, prices go high, and that home that you've been eyeballing could be gone. If you're wondering how the drop in interest rates is going to affect your payment, give me a call. I'll be more than happy to show you all of the options available to get you into your new home. And for every single loan that we close for a fellow Nole, I will personally donate $250 per closing to the battle's end. Let's do this together and let's keep climbing. Call me today at 954-369-6171. That's 954-369-6171. Or you can find me online at loansfornoles.com. That's loansfornoles.com.
Equal housing lender. NMLS number 373031.
There's fun to be had every night at the Corner Pocket. Take-home prizes on Trivia Tuesdays and Beer Bingo Thursdays. And kickstart your weekend with Martini Fridays. Plus, happy hour runs every weekday and game day specials every time the Noles take the field. Watch all the best games at the Corner Pocket's Vegas wall, featuring 560 inches of flat-screen TV heaven.
Oh, really?
The best food, the best drinks, and the best place to watch all the games. Tallahassee loves the Corner Pocket.
It's easy to see. We're being conned by the institutions we used to trust. The mainstream media is distracting us with meaningless headlines instead of focusing on the harsh realities facing American families. We all know something big is coming, and that's why so many folks are preparing. They're becoming more self-reliant by investing in emergency food storage from My Patriot Supply. My Patriot Supply is the nation's largest emergency preparedness company, and they make it easy for you to prepare. Go to mypatriotsupply.com and secure some emergency food kits. There's a dozen to choose from that contain tasty breakfasts, lunches, and dinners, averaging 2,000 calories per day. Get at least one food kit for each family member. My Patriot Supply also sells large solar generators, gravity-powered water filtration systems, heirloom seeds for your garden, and survival gear. Order by 3 p.m. and your items will ship that same day. Time is short. Prepare today. Go to mypatriotsupply.com. mypatriotsupply.com.
Life is stressful. Dinner shouldn't be. That motto is why Register Sausage has been doing business in the Florida Panhandle and Lower Alabama for over 75 years. A proud sponsor of Seminole Headlines, Register Sausage always provides the best Southern smoked sausage to over 140 grocery stores and restaurants throughout the Southeast. Headliners have discovered the Register's difference. You can too. To find a store that carries Registers near you or to buy directly, head to registermeats.com. That's registermeats.com. Register Sausage. Yay, sausage!
Seminole Headlines returns now. Head to YouTube and search for Warchant TV today to catch the show live or on demand. Now, here's Jeff Cameron, Ira Schofel, and Corey Clark.
So we were just talking about it, and I you get pumped about this, and it could be very aspirational to sit here and tell you that I think they're going to be appreciably better than they were a year ago. But I think it's a fair thing to suggest they'll be more balanced than they were a year ago. I think they'll have an opportunity to be better on the offensive line than they were a year ago. And then I think that balance, you talk about striking that balance, there is no superstar at the wide receiver position this year. You do not have to feed the ball to anybody. There's no sense of responsibility that, hey, that's my guy. I love Johnny Wilson. He's been with me. We've come up together. I got to get him the ball. Or that's Keon Coleman. We brought him in for one reason. We got to get him the ball. Jaheim Bell was a big personality. And, There's none of that. And there ought not be. It's hard. Every year is different. Each team is of itself, right? We know that. But I don't think Mike would come into this camp talking to DJ about, hey, make sure you get the ball to someone. No.
Yeah, and the thing about the Keon thing, what's interesting is it's not so much, and I think some people have wondered whether or not, and it's fair to wonder whether or not Keon got frustrated if he wasn't being targeted. And there were times during games where you'd see him talking to Jordan, or so it's fair to wonder that. But even if he didn't, right? If you're Mike Norvell and you bring in a guy who caught 50 balls a year before at Michigan State, and he's this high-profile transfer target, if he comes in and catches 35 passes and 5 touchdowns,
right,
it doesn't reflect great on you or your program. And I'm not.
What are the chances you're going to go get another guy like him?
Right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying that that's a reason to call the game differently, or that Mike Norvell ever put the offense in jeopardy or the team in jeopardy by doing that. But you got to think that's a factor, right?
100%, Ira. And this is the balancing act if you build on the portal. And there's nothing wrong with it. You can do it. Florida State's done it. They've just won 23 games in the last 2 years. So you can do it. But there is a downside. Not everything's perfect. Just like there's a downside to only recruiting high school. You can have years where you don't have enough experience and you got a lot of young people having to play and you just got to wear a effing 8-4 season. So, this is how it happens. There's a downside to every aspect of it. You're trying to strike the perfect balance. It's hard to do.
It's almost like a free agent signing in the NFL or a number 1 draft pick in the NFL. If you've got this signing high school kids is one thing. People understand if a high school kid comes in, doesn't really play right away or doesn't start right away. But you bring in a high profile transfer, it's kind of on the coaches to make sure they produce.
Without question. And I think that the reason that you look at time after time, they get these defensive ends and, look at what they've been able to produce with these guys. Almost every one of them that has come in, except for a couple of guys that they took flyers on late that were never going to play. But, for the most part, these guys they've brought in, especially the whole high-profile guys from Power 5 conferences, they've come in and played great. And they've gotten better in a very short period of time. They've elevated their stock. And, when Jared Verse gets drafted in the first round this year on the heels of what Jermaine Johnson just did with the Jets, and, we know Keir Thomas was very good too. So you got a bunch of reasons if you're a free agent, for lack of a better term, in the transfer portal as a defensive end to say, well, I'm going there. First of all, they win a lot. The guys get better. They all elevated their stock. So I'm going there. Well, that doesn't happen if you whiff on those guys. It doesn't happen if you bring those guys in and they suck. It doesn't happen if you end up at their second string.
They get beat out by somebody you already had on the roster. And it may be happening now at defensive tackle because you had Braden Fisk, who is killing it now in the pre-draft process. Jim Nagy yesterday he was on with Andy Staples and said he thinks he's a top 50 pick. He said he doesn't see any way now that Braden Fisk slips out of the top 50. So you're talking about a second round pick. Darrell Jackson, I think, has every opportunity to have a big year and be another one next year. So again, it just adds to that attraction. Now you got multiple positions where Florida State is a proven track record of bringing guys in, and don't let DJ have a great year. And
I listen. There's a very specific role for DJ that he can play well. And if he does it, and if that's all that's asked of him, that's necessary in the league too. So you're right. There'll be those things. To me, man, it's funny that you bring up Darrell Jackson. I think he's kind of he's the guy that we want to circle here. Because I believe, look, Farmer's going to be good. He's going to be good. Patrick Payton is going to be good. They're going to get one of these experienced defensive ends that they brought in to be good. They're going to be
multiple, but at least one.
Yeah, but at least one, right? Okay, so now we start going and picking through the guys, right? But there's one guy on that group that has an upside because of what he is physically that exceeds that of, I think, everybody else, and it's Darrell Jackson. It does not mean that Darrell Jackson's going to play well. Darrell Jackson has a history of kind of being okay. He's been okay. He hasn't been great at any point in his career. It's got to be maddening for people that were at Maryland and then Miami, and then we know the situation that happened the past year's not his fault. But it sucked. I mean, you couldn't get him on the field, and he would be great in one practice and not great in the next practice. If Darrell Jackson cares enough to know and decides, I got to get everything out of what I have, this massive body, this unbelievable talent, skill set, right? Because I want to get paid one time right here to change my fortune and my family's fortunes, and goes all in on dedicating himself to having an incredible season, he could be a dominant player. He could end up being a first or second round draft pick, and it changes the dynamic of your defense completely if he decides to do that. Maybe he will. That is a wait and see.
Yeah, and if I had to put my money on it, I would say it happens just he and Josh Farmer are so tied together. They played high school football together. Josh Farmer is the main reason he came to Florida State, along with being closer to his mom. But, man, Josh Farmer's the leader. From what I can tell, Josh Farmer seems to be the leader in that relationship. And he's the guy that, he's got the big personality, and he is very focused. I mean, you think about when Josh Farmer came to Florida State, he weighed like 250 pounds.
Yeah, he's huge now.
He's over 300 pounds. He's a monster. But to your point with Darrell Jackson, and somebody asked about it last night on the Smash from Tom and I, could Braden Fisk get in the first round? And the problem for Braden Fisk is he doesn't have Darrell Jackson's size. And I think, to me, like, Darrell Jackson's the guy that, say he doesn't have quite the same year that Braden Fisk does, but he goes up there to the combine
and looks like that.
It looks like that and moves like that with that power.
Yeah.
And teams are going to salivate. So, dude, it's all there for him. If he has a big year, and he should be as motivated or more motivated than anybody, that could change the complexion of that defensive line, because it should be a really good defensive line. But if he's a terror, and that's a big if, because he's never been that, but if he is a consistent terror, it could be something else.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see if they get it out of him. I'm excited to see if he makes a choice. If he makes a real choice here to be great. And I think they all have to, because Farmer can get paid a lot of money at the end of this year. This is it's a good season for this defense if you're hoping to see it sustain a level of excellence, right? I mean, I don't know how they could be as good as they were a year ago. Obviously, those numbers anyhow are really, really good. I think they were good. Those numbers are inflated a little bit, in my opinion, because of the second half of the season quarterback play that they played against. I still think it's good. Mm-hmm. But I don't know that they're going to sustain it because of all of the guys that they did lose. But you got a bunch of guys that need to get paid. Patrick Payton wants to get paid, and if he takes another step forward, and he has every year he's been here, so now all of a sudden, let's say he's a complete defensive end and he stops the run to go along. We saw Jared Verse do it. Jared Verse went from a really good pass rusher, pretty good against the run, a little undersized, to bigger, stronger, and more complete. If Peyton does that, he already plays the pass exceptionally well. He's a freakish athlete. He's really long. Batted balls Peyton, as we call him.
Old batted balls.
Yeah, old batted balls is a stud. If he decides he's gonna make plays against the run consistently and set the edge to go along with that pass rushing ability and that length, well then, man, he's gonna get paid and he's gonna take a step forward. Darrell Jackson, we just got done describing what he could be. Farmer could be, if he has a great season, a first round pick. One of those ends, like we were talking about, has a chance to elevate his stock. I don't know, man. You got the Alabama kid at linebacker, Murphy. So these are all guys wanting to prove themselves, take steps forward, become legitimately recognized as NFL prospects, big-time NFL prospects.
Yeah, I'd say two things just from that you touched on that sparked my thoughts. One is it's really going to be important. It is a get-paid year for that whole defensive line. I mean, there's a ton of guys up there that this is their year that they could have huge NFL prospects, but that can't affect the discipline, right? I mean, that those guys have got to stay disciplined. It can't be about making production. It can't be about trying to make big plays. It's got to be about doing your job. I think that's one thing that group last year was really good at. Was for the most part, it was really good. And then you see in the bowl game, forget all of the problems with personnel. Florida State never set the edge one time, I think, in that game against Georgia. I mean, everybody crashed, and because I think they were all panicking because nobody trusted anybody around them, and it was just a disaster. Even guys who can play, that we've seen play, weren't doing their jobs because it was just chaos because they were getting their heads beat in. So I'm not going to blame them for that, but that's going to be important going into this year because you do have some new faces, and they've got to build that trust that really had been developed over these last 2 years. And they're going to need it, man. This defensive front and that secondary, I think, is going to be excellent. And that defensive front has got to be excellent too because they're going to play some good quarterbacks, man. The kid from Memphis is a good quarterback. Yeah. The kid at SMU is a good quarterback. The kid at Georgia Tech's a dangerous quarterback. He can beat you running in, and he's got a pretty good arm. I mean, they're going to, the kid at Miami, obviously, Cam Ward. So they're going to face some legit quarterbacks. So they've got to be great up front. And I think the secondary is going to be good, but they're going to need the defensive front to be disciplined as well as talented.
It's interesting. By the way, I'm wondering, what do you think they're going to get? We can't know, but we're all excited. We talk about why we're excited to cover camp. What do you think they're going to get at Marvin Jones Jr.?
I'm excited to see, man. I think I'll say this, man. There were a couple things. I was really impressed by his interview, and it's hard, to know a whole lot based on interviews, but it helps when the person saying the things you like to hear also has a body like that, right? And has that athletic ability. So again, it's encouraging, but there were a couple things he said that I thought he was brutally honest, man, about himself, which I thought was awesome. He said, when I came out of high school, there were not a lot of good offensive tackles in Miami. There's just not. That's not the style of football. There's not a lot of good offensive linemen down there, which is bared out. And how many great offensive linemen have come from Miami? There's just not many from the city of Miami's high school prospects. Right. And so he's like, I didn't really have to have great technique. I didn't have to have or play with great effort or have great strength. So that's what he's been working on at Georgia. And I think, man, if you really look at the second half of last season, it seemed like he was coming on. His snaps got more frequent. He got more playing time. He was more productive. And I think it was like in that second year, he really started to kind of emerge as, okay, we can trust you to be on the field. And that's a big deal, man. That was a great Georgia defense. It wasn't the greatest Georgia defense of all time, but it was a really good, maybe one of the best defenses in the country. And he had earned a role in that unit. So, yeah, man, I think he's got a ton of potential. If he had come here, my fear was 5-star recruit out of high school, didn't really materialize at Georgia. Let me go over here and find the easiest path. But I didn't get that sense from him at all.
Yeah, that's important. That's important you bring that up because I think you're right about that. And the other part of it is, look, man, this is the same thing we've said about all the Alabama kids is if you're going to come here after going to a place like Georgia and you got on the field at all.
It wasn't like he saw less playing time as time went on. He saw more.
He saw more. And so that's the other thing. It's like we look at these guys. Is anybody worried about Earl Little Jr.? No, he's going to be fine. He's going to be good. In fact, I think we both think he's going to be really good. So these are guys that have the pedigree, quite literally. Their fathers were NFL, players. We're all Americans. They were literally beasts. And if you give me a hard-working Marvin Jones Jr. who's had an eye-opening experience and had to learn on the fly some real, mental and physical lessons.
Both of those guys also played their best football probably in high school for Pat Surtain, who's on this staff.
Yeah, it's a reason to get pumped. I think it's, again, we keep talking about what bets are you willing to make? And I'm a gambling guy. I'm willing to bet on people who look like that, who have that pedigree, and were recruited to places like Georgia, Alabama, LSU. Like, the track record is there for you to go ahead and sprinkle some pizza money on them continuing to develop and become really good players. I don't see why they wouldn't. And they got to be motivated. None of them are set. None of them are ready. They've still got something to prove, especially if their ultimate goal is to get to the NFL. Seminole Headlines 93.3 Real Talk Radio. Warchant TV continues in a moment.
Hey, headliners, it's Ira here, and it's time to talk Shopify. As you remember, a couple years ago, I wanted to create and sell Headlines merch for the best podcast listeners in the world. That's you guys. But I had no idea where to get started. Now we're selling Yay Sausage shirts, and it's so easy, all because we use Shopify. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. Whether you're a startup working out of your man cave or IPO ready, Shopify is the only tool you'll need to grow your business without the struggle. Shopify puts you in control of every sales channel. You could be selling Don Julio socks from Shopify's in-person point-of-sale system or offering headliner shirts from Shopify's all-in-one e-commerce platform. Whatever you need, you're covered. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout, up to 36% better compared to other leading commerce platforms. So you'll sell more with less effort thanks to Shopify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. What I really love about Shopify is how no matter how big you want to grow, Shopify gives you everything you need to take control and take your business to the next level. because businesses that grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/warchant, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/warchant, all lowercase, now to grow your business, no matter what stage of the game you're in. Shopify.com/warchant.
Have you been in a wreck on I-10? I'm Carrie Roan, shareholder and attorney at Fasig Brooks Law Offices. Our number one priority is helping you get the settlement you deserve after your accident. We can help find the proof you need to settle your claim fairly. At Fasig Brooks, we partner with Road Proof to record all interstate traffic camera footage from Jacksonville to Pensacola. If you've been in a wreck on I-10, our footage could be vital in supporting your case. Call Fasig Brooks today, 850-777-7777.
Indulge in the authentic Korean way of grilling right at your table at the all-new Chow One Korean Steakhouse in Tallahassee. All you can eat succulent beef, chicken, pork, and an amazing selection of fresh vegetables and homemade sauces crafted with all natural ingredients in a luxurious upscale dining environment. Chow One Korean Steakhouse. Experience the ultimate fusion of flavor and fun in Tallahassee. Enjoy happy hour from 4 to 7 daily. Located at 1107 Appalachia Parkway, just east of the Capitol Building.
Life is stressful. Dinner shouldn't be. That motto is why Register Sausage has been doing business in the Florida Panhandle and Lower Alabama for over 75 years. A proud sponsor of Seminole Headlines, Register Sausage always provides the best Southern smoked sausage to over 140 grocery stores and restaurants throughout the Southeast. Headliners have discovered the Register's difference. You can too. To find a store that carries Registers near you or to buy directly, head to registermeats.com. That's registermeats.com. Register Sausage. Yay, sausage!
Seminole Headlines returns now. Head to YouTube and search for Warchant TV today to catch the show live or on demand. Now, here's Jeff Cameron, Ira Schofel, and Corey Clark.
You mentioned they're going to play a lot of good quarterbacks. That's the other thing about projections, and we spent a lot of time on it in this first hour because it's fun because this is a week we get to see them, so we're excited about it. But I think the one thing that gives me pause is I do think this is a much better schedule than they've had. I do. I know LSU was out the gates the last 2 years, but it's going to be interesting. This is a better Miami program. I do think there's a sneaky game in there when we go to Texas. That could be an interesting. That's a quality team with a quality coach and quarterback. I do think Clemson's going to be really hot in terms of anger. Like we'll see what they are, but we know they have talent. We just saw it a year ago. Florida State was really good and barely survived. And frankly, if they don't get that play by Deloach, they don't win the game.
And how motivated are they going to be beat DJ?
Right. Oh, yeah. So, I mean, you're going to get a good version of Clemson or an angry version of Clemson that does have talent. Then you got to figure, as you said, I think Georgia Tech's a lot better than people realize. If you look at the second half of last season, they played very well. And I pay attention to them because my niece just graduated from there. And, she's gotten to see nothing but terrible football. And at the end of last year, she's like, we're okay. I'm like, you are okay. You're not bad. You're not bad. But there's that game. Then you're on the road at Notre Dame, which won't be easy, obviously. I don't know, man. I do think this is a better schedule, wrought with more potential for if you play poorly kind of games where you lose. Like that's the one thing about the SEC most years that we all understand. Like that, the reason that league is the best league, beyond investment, is that most years, not all, but most years, we all understand that if you're in that league, that if you don't play well in a night game at Mississippi State, you lose. You just do. If you go on the road to Kentucky and don't play well, you'll lose. If you go on the road to Ole Miss and play poorly, you'll lose. There's a lot of chances to lose. And let's be honest. Yeah.
I was going to say, you can lose at home to Arkansas or Auburn.
Yeah.
If one of those teams get going and you're not playing well, there's
If you don't meet the intensity, you lose. That doesn't really happen in the ACC. Like if you are playing poorly, you can beat Boston College. You can
wake up. You can wake up and win the game.
Yeah, you can wake up and find a way to come back and play well in the second half against Pitt and win the game. You can, but it doesn't really happen against a lot of teams in the SEC if you're playing poorly. So I think this year's schedule feels more like that, where the pitfalls are there. Come out the gate slow. Maybe you're disjointed because you've got all these new parts. And now it's 13-13 in the third quarter against Georgia Tech. Or are you struggling on the road against Notre Dame? Or what is it against Miami, who has a lot to prove against you at this point? They're tired of being